How's it going, everybody? Yeah, I'm here to do a studio update. This would be the final one since everything is exactly how I want it, which is my only reason for calling it the perfect studio, just because it's the perfect studio for me. The perfect music making machine, like I wanted all along. I've done it just as I wanted, just as I planned, although everything turned out to involve things I'd never knew existed back then. Since last time, I don't know, I may look a little different. It's because I've grown a set of ears, another set of ears. That might be it. Yeah. So, first of all, I uh, I dabbled in the idea of DAWless a lot because computers are different than music makers. Computers do other things and do things differently. So, and they do after experiencing it all. I went through and experienced a lot of DAWs for many years um, to just try and find what the absolute best might be. And what I settled on was um, a software program that allowed me to use modules, separate modules, to create what I want in a music production workstation, which is mainly what I want in a mixer. And for me, it ended up being a simple mixer setup with just including only the things on that mixer that I would want to do when recording my songs. Not necessarily all the other things that digital workstations in software offer for everybody to do as a whole. So I went with VCV Rack, and I've been using it for years, and I have many videos on the subject. I think I have a playlist on a lot of this stuff. The background music you hear is from VCV Rack, and they came out with an update, and it's called VCV Rack 2, and which had been much anticipated for years, especially by me because it's less CPU intensive. It'll allow me to do some things that I wasn't able to do before, and I've been exploring that a lot lately too. So basically, what I've been able to do is send 16 channels from this real life studio mixer. I mean, from studio, real life studio instruments, all the audio into my computer through this thing on the rack over here. This first thing on the left, at the very bottom of the rack on your left, if you're looking at the screen, and that the black cables are plugged into with the little white bands on them. Now that is the Tascam 1608, and it is a 16-channel audio interface, and it has 8 outs as well. 16 physical ins, 8 physical outs. Seriously. All kind of organized in possible stereo fashion. And what I use for the mixer control for that computer software mixer that I use and use this Tascam audio interface, 16 channels to go into, that whole program, to control it, I use the Novation Launch Control XL. It's been my best friend over the years in the studio for many uses and many reasons. I can not just map the volumes of the eight stereo tracks to its faders, but I can also use all those knobs however I want, not just for the set, delay, reverb, and pan that would normally be used. I can have 3 of them working one synth inside VCV Rack, and 4 other knobs working other functions on another synth, and so on and so forth. And whatever my imagination could ever come up with. And so it's a good solution. Although I still enjoy just working with a mixer outside of a computer and being able to record from that is a really nice thing to do as well, because it's fun, a little bit more relaxing, easy, and allows you to focus kind of 100% on the music itself. And I've just set up something in the computer that I feel is simple enough that it's just like that. No frills, no bells and whistles. Just a delay module, a reverb module for things like the mono station, the Novation mono station right next to me here can go through, because it does not have a delay or reverb on it. On board it has distortion. I'll get into that. So that's the computer side. All of this is going into that. 16 channels, pretty much all stereo when it goes in, except for the mono station and the mini brute. So, first of all, the thing on the left in the bottom left corner to you is the TR6S. The TR6S is a little drum machine, 6-channel drum machine, and it's perfect for me. I probably might argue that the world's most perfect drum machine is its big brother or sister or whatever, the TR8S, the Roland TR8S. But that has 11 channels, and yeah, you know. So for me, it's 6 channels, and why it is perfect for me as a drum machine is that it has synthesis, as in you can, synthesis made rhythm sounds and drum sounds and stuff like that you can change the parameters of in simple ways, and samples that you can change the parameters of in ways that you can change samples. And it has all the best sample sets of all the old Roland drum machines that are great at emulating real drum sets. And so when I need that, I need a drum machine. And so the last thing about the TR6S that makes it so great is the FM percussion engine. And I love FM percussion. As you can see, just next to my ear here, my right ear, is the Moog DFAM. And it is also, it employs a lot of good FM percussion sounds, FM-made percussion sounds. It's frequency modulation synthesis, but FM for percussion sounds is a very interesting thing, and I love it. And I like to work with it on many devices that I've had, also software. Okay, and so moving on to the MC101 next to it, and you might call it its sibling, its twin sibling. It does 4 channels. It's perfect, actually, because it replaces all past workstations, like all the old workstations. If you have a dusty old Roland workstation, sure, it doesn't have 16 channels, like, set there all next to each other like that to work with, but it kind of does in a way, but a different way. Because drum channels, it has this actual 16 channels to work with, and that can be on one channel, or any of the 4 channels, or all of the 4 channels can each have 16 tracks of drums. So, dang. I mean, all at once. Or, the thing is, it's really easy to bounce tracks on the MC101, so it's kind of its own little mixer there that you can bounce over tracks, and it's almost like having your old synthesizer workstation of Roland's past, along with the big mixer that allows you to, to record all the tracks and bounce tracks and stuff like that, so, and it's all in this little box that you could set on a big keyboard. And the thing about it that would make it less perfect is if you didn't have a keyboard to plug it into, because it does not have velocity on the pads. So it's going to sound cheap, it's going to sound computery, it's going to sound whatever if you try to play something on those pads, it's not going to sound as expressive as playing it on any keyboard that has velocity sensitivity. So, any kind of MIDI keyboard like I have here, the Arturia keystep, which is also the perfect keyboard that there's a reason why everybody uses it and talks about it, and takes it everywhere. It actually feels really great in its own way, in its own very unique way. And yeah, nobody ever argues about that. Okay, why am I whispering? I hope you could still hear me there. You probably could because my microphone's really hot. Such a hot microphone. Okay, so moving on. What else is perfect? My System 1 is perfect. That green thing on the edge of the screen there. The green envelopes that you can see with the sliders. Those are the filter envelope and the amp envelope of the synthesizer. It was almost perfect. It's perfect now that I put silver knobs on it, just like I did with my original circuit and other things. I like to put silver knobs on things if they don't already have them, most of the time. Sometimes not. But anyway, the reason why the System 1 is perfect is, just for every reason, is that it's got everything on the face of it. Just easy to see, easy to use. You can learn it all in a day just by going, what does this do? What does this do? And, well, relatively. And it has so much modulation. The other thing is just all the waveforms. It isn't just the most perfect, it's a way to make the most perfect vintage analog sound if you ever need one. It's also 4 voices of that instead of just one. And if you want it to be. It's also got some modular to it, like you can plug the cables into it at the top of it. And all the other waveforms open it up past that whole vintage synth point. A few things that I do want to say about it is just the plug out whole functionality stuff. Not necessary, because if you're going for vintage analog, like I said, its own just plain System 1 voice without using any other thing, it was already made for that, but better, but best. And then you can tweak it to make it older and older and older if you want, older sounding, just by tweaking a couple knobs, and it works great. Yeah, you don't need to limit it any more than that. And if I were to get another synth that were that size to be a either 1 or 4 voice or whatever synth of any sort, it would be another System 1 out of everything that exists. Now, along those lines, same thing with the Peak. If I were to get another nice poly synth, it would be either the Peak or the Summit, depending on whether I wanted a keyboard or not, to be attached to it. This is great with the keyboard detached from it, because any keyboard can be attached to it, and including the Novation Launchpad Pro Mark III, which is amazing in terms of its sensitivity and its polyphonic aftertouch, which the Peak also has and loves the most. And so do your ears when someone's playing something with polyphonic aftertouch with the Peak. Now, this keystep has aftertouch, but it's regular aftertouch, and it does create an amazing, epic, immersive experience with the Peak. Now, I don't need to talk about the Peak, about why it's perfect. You can find out for yourself. But it just is for me. And I may talk more in more videos. Probably not. But, moving next to it is the subharmonicon with all those red dots, the most red dots by my ear here. That's the Moog subharmonicon. It's on top of the DFAM there. And the subharmonicon is perfect because it's important. It's a part of history, and it's not just a part of history because of the idea of what it is, but because of functionally what it does and how it does it. and I'm a part of that, and I feel really fortunate. It's the same thing with the DFAM. It's not your best drum set necessarily. It could be, but in a situation where it's the best, but that's only going to happen when that's true. But it means something in terms of how it's set up, its functionality, and how it is uniquely used because of how it is uniquely made. And that's all I can really say about the Moog rack stuff. I do not have the Mother 32. But it's great too. Just not necessary for me. I have other things for those tasks. Now, the SQ64 over here is perfect because it is the perfect little compact controller that has many good functions for modular and all the outputs for modular that I need for 3 melodic voices and also a N8 channel. In modular, it's 8 channel, and over MIDI, it's 16. 8 channels of trigger sequencer, which is a drum sequencer or rhythm sequencer. And yes, it's A, B, C, and D, and the D track always has to be a rhythm sequencer. Unlike the MC101 over here, where the drum track doesn't have to be there. It can always be 4 melodic tracks or 4 drum tracks or 2 of each. Over here they're set, which is about the outputs, and it's good that way, because over here my perfect modular system is a mostly mutable instruments system, mostly put out by After Later Audio stuff, and his stuff. Lenny is an awesome guy and an awesome creator of modules. And so this is mostly physical modeling of guitar sounds, string sounds, nature sounds, ambient sounds, mallet sounds, mallet percussion, which is my big thing, and that's the reason why I mainly made it the way I did, is for the sake of being a mallet percussionist. Now, and I've got some good reverb and delay and stuff like that, effects going on for all the voices. Okay, but the thing about the SQ64 is you might say, well, it's only doing 3 melodic voices, and I have 5 voices here, 3 platzes and 2 rings to work with. And also the subharmonicon comes in through the effects, but that's different. Not sequenced. And see, that's the deal, is I do have 5 voices up here, but 2 will generally always be not sequenced, because 1 will be an ambient background noise or drone or something, and those don't even need to be triggered, let alone sequenced. And also at the same time, there may also be, by way of keyboard, a separate keyboard, a voice free to play live and not be sequenced by a sequencer like this. So, although I have 5 voices, it may seem like 3 is not enough for sequencing, but it is, in every case I've used so far. And if not, I have other sequencers to supplement. If I want to sequence all 5 sounds ever. So, yeah. I couldn't ask for anything more. Below the Moogs here on the Moog rack, the bottom part of the Moog rack is actually a Moog Eurorack case, and in it is my utility modules, and also one of the most perfect modules ever, which is my quad quantizer by Tenderfoot. And that's the perfect thing for this stuff up here. Also, if I didn't already have a sequencer, you can use LFOs, which are on that utility case, also attenuators, and then the quad quantizer. And that'll create all sorts of different kinds of melody going on at the same time, and I can put them all in the same key, change that key on the fly live in performance ways, and change back. It's cool. So, apart from having all I could ask for in a modular and not wanting any more modules, I'm also good to not think that I had to fill up whatever exact rack space I had, because I think it's important to have empty space here in this utility case here, just to move things around. That's what modular is good for. Even if you are always going to use the same modules for always the same stuff, you never know. You might switch it up sometime. And then, so on to pretty much the last things here that I didn't mention. The mono station is the perfect mono synth. It's got the perfect sequencer on it already, so it doesn't need to be sequenced by anything else. And it's the most amazing sounding synth ever. Like, as a mono synth that the system one's great too. They're a bit different, but the mono station is powerful and great. But it is a certain kind of thing compared to all these other instruments that have effects on board. The mono station is made to be the perfect pre-reverb instrument. It's like an instrument on stage where you're going to have a live mixer guy who's going to prefer to put a certain amount of delay and reverb on everyone and everything in a certain way. He's going to want to be in control of that. The vocal people, the drum set, and all the live instruments. And the mono station is like an instrument you can have up there with all those live instruments. You can be a part of the real, wider world of music and not just a synth cave. And go like, yeah, this is a performance instrument. And then that's also why either I leave it to the mixer dude, or I have my pedal with it, And I'm like a guitarist, and I treat it like a guitar, and I have my pedal, my delay and reverb pedal with it, which I do. And so that's the RC505. And what it is a 5-channel looper. Oh my gosh. I disappeared. Just a sec. Yeah, so, sorry, I might not have disappeared, but I thought I did. So, it's a 5-channel looper, the RC505, with a multi-effect pedal coming in on the input, and a multi-effect pedal going out on the output of the things that are already recorded. And yeah. Control over all 3 effects on one side and all 3 effects on the other side all at once on that device, just on, from knobs and buttons. So it's great. But anyway, so there are multiple inputs to that device as well, even though they all go through the same effects at the same time. They can't go through separate effects at the same time. But, so if I want the same amount of delay and reverb on, say, the mono station, and also my other one, my other pre-reverb instrument, a mini brute, at the same time, I'll have them both hooked up through, not just into the computer themselves, which I could do, but I can also put them through the RC505, and they'll have delay and reverb that way. And so those are the 2 pre-reverb instruments that you might think would be perfect but aren't, because they don't have onboard effects like all my other stuff seems to try to have. And but anyway, oh yeah, the subharmonicon doesn't, and I use my tip-top Z-verb. I put it through the modular effects, and that works great. And that's thanks to my perfect matrix mixer that I figured out how it would work, and then I got the modules that would make it work, two mixers to make it all work, to do sends and returns and stuff like that. And it's amazing. And then in a blink of an eye, after 5 or 6 years now, about 6 years, I finally have my perfect studio, and I won't be doing another one of these studio updates. And thank you all for coming and listening to me brag about cool things, stuff I think is cool. I don't think it makes me cool, really. I think I would recommend other things for other people for a lot of reasons in talking videos that aren't this one. But and I also thank everyone for being a part of history, which is my Vtubing debut video. And I'm gonna kind of do this more often while I make music. I'm gonna make music and be the VTuber instead of showing my real self. And yeah, so and maybe in a few months I'll get the hardware that'll allow me to have hands here, and I'll be able to wave at you and do the hands and have hands. But until then, I'm not really worried about that. Yeah, I'm just happy to have ears. So, good times. I'll see y'all probably a lot more this summer. Take it easy, everybody. Stay mellow.